Hello and welcome to Edison TV with me, Michelle Livings. Today, the focus is on print media and the UK's largest distributor of newspapers and magazines. Smiths News has around a 55% market share, covering 24,000 retailers in England and Wales. Now, the past 10 years have seen some ups and some downs, but here to discuss their latest results is CEO of Smiths News, Jonathan Bunting. Jonathan, hello.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi, thank you so much for joining us today. I tell you what, let's start by summing up the year that you've just concluded.
Yeah, I mean, we've had a really positive year. We've exceeded all of our financial targets with profits up, EBITDA up to 42.6 million, which is fab. But we've also delivered on all of our non-financial targets, which is really important. Our people engagement scores are at a record high, and our service levels have been in advance of those of 2019. So in other words, throughout the pandemic, our service levels have been as good as ever. So from our perspective, if I think about where we are in our strategic journey, phase one, absolutely complete, and we are bang on where we'd want to be.
That's really fantastic, really positive. You mentioned briefly the pandemic, and actually I wanted to come on to that. Do you think that COVID has had any lasting impact on long-term market trends?
Yeah, I think there's going to be both positives and negatives. If we look at it at the highest level, just in terms of sales, we think we've probably experienced one more year of decline than we would otherwise have done. So an incremental 5% of decline. So that's negative, clearly. However, there are some positive trends as well. We've definitely seen an increase in home news delivery as people wanted to have their papers and magazines delivered to their home, which has been very positive. And also, I think we've seen an increase in people wanting to return to the physical product. And I think it might be, and you may have experienced this yourself, you know, if you've had a day on Zooms or Teams or something similar, you get that kind of screen fatigue.
Absolutely.
And therefore, when you want to consume your hobby or your news, it's nice to be able to do that with a physical product. And we've definitely seen lots of evidence of that.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, actually. I like to be able to read a physical newspaper personally. And when it comes to magazines, yeah, there's nothing better than actually flicking through the physical printed copy. So
Exactly.
yeah, very much so. Thinking about the travel restrictions, to what extent are travel restrictions and changes to commuter patterns still impacting demand?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the only area where we're currently seeing an impact is probably because we're all still wrestling with this hybrid working. You know, lots of organizations have got people doing 2 days in the office, maybe less, some are doing 3. But we've certainly not got the 5-day-a-week commuting that we used to have pre-pandemic. So naturally, our sales in travel outlets are reduced as a consequence, particularly on Mondays and Fridays when people tend to want to work from home. However, we're very fortunate. We service retailers across all channels. And therefore, whilst we've got depressed sales in some of our travel points, we've actually got increased sales in some of our local retailers, convenience stores, etc. So as people stay at home to work and perhaps pop to their local convenience store for something, we see newspapers and magazine sales picking up there.
Yeah, so a different type of commute, really.
Different type of commute, yeah, absolutely right.
Yeah. Now, there's been widespread commentary recently relating to labour shortages and cost inflation. How are these trends affecting Smiths News? And also, what action can the company sort of take to minimise the financial impact?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, we didn't really see much of this impact in the last financial year, but we have noticed it more acutely over the last 8 weeks. We don't have HGV drivers in our business, but we do have lots and lots of subcontractors and a small internal fleet of our own. And we have seen that market become more competitive over the last 8 weeks. Not all over the country. There are certain geographic hotspots. And so we're doing all the things you'd expect of a responsible business to both retain the colleagues that we have and the subcontractors that we have, and also to attract new ones. And that's, you know, whether that's creative marketing campaigns, addressing rates, or just ensuring that we are living our values. I mean, we absolutely do believe that culture is an important part of our business, and the way we talk to and treat our colleagues is an important part of why they stay. So yes, some of this is about financial, but some of this is about just having the right values in the organisation and treating people with respect.
Absolutely, it's really good to hear. Where are Smiths News on the strategic journey that you have for the business then?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I mentioned at the start that we were exiting sort of phase one. There are 3 phases in our plan. Phase one was always to simplify the group. Smiths News has always generated lots and lots of good free cash, but it was sort of masked from the market in a way because we've got lots of other things going on in the business, lots of other businesses we owned. Now it's back to largely being Smiths News with 1 or 2 smaller businesses. That free cash is starting to become more visible to the market, and has been again this year. So that's sort of phase one, simplifying the group, freeing up that free cash and making it visible. And I think we've done a good job of that. Phase two is then through a combination of our financing agreements and our capital allocation policy is ensuring that we get the right balance between paying good dividends to our shareholders, but paying down debt. And we think if we do both of those in tandem, we can create value for our investing community, because simply not only will the dividends be progressive as we go through, but actually we might see some enterprise value increase as well as the debt goes down. So that's sort of phase two. Yeah. And then phase three, which we've not started yet, is really about looking to say, how can we use the assets and capabilities we have in the business differently to try and attract different profit streams into our business. We've not started that yet. It's all so far been about phase one, and we're making good progress on phase two. But there will come a point in the not too distant future when phase three becomes a priority for us.
Yeah, I was going to say, when do you anticipate that starting? But you say not too distant.
Yeah, no, it's certainly not within the next 6 months, but okay. But within the next 18 months, certainly.
Great. I wanted to come on to the topic of ESG. Because that's obviously in the front of people's minds right now. And Smiths News has just established 5 pillars of focus and activity in this regard. So could you talk to us a little bit about the tangible actions that Smiths News is taking in support of its ESG ambitions?
Yeah, sure, Michelle. And I think, like many businesses, we've probably done a pretty good job internally of doing some of this stuff over the last few years, and a really poor job externally of explaining that. So let me see if I can sort of correct some of that. In terms of our ambitions and our longer term ambitions, we've stated that by 2035, we want all of our fleet and our subcontractors to be operating from non-fossil fuel vehicles. We've said by 2030 that we want all of our warehouses to be net carbon neutral. So they're 2 sort of aspirational targets, and they will largely be used to sort of guide us in the decisions we make and the investments we make over the next decade. And I think that's important. But we've also got some very firm commitments in the short term. So our in-house fleet within 3 years will be non-fossil fuel. We will have at least 1 warehouse being net neutral, carbon neutral within a 3-year period. We've announced that from a diversity and inclusion perspective, we expect to see a 30% increase in the representation of minority groups within our leadership team. That goes all the way through to the board by 2026. We also have, little known, that we established a homeless charity we started the initiative in 2017 and it became a formal charity in 2020. That's called Pass It On. And Smiths News are the anchor supporter of that homeless charity, which has now got independent status. Fantastic. So we're doing lots and lots of things, both in the long term and indeed in the short term. Yeah,
that's really, really good to hear. Lots of positive stuff there. Let's talk a bit about net debt. It's falling quicker than analysts expected. Does this accelerate management thinking relating to reinvestment for future growth?
Yeah, that's a good question. So undoubtedly, the net debt is falling, and it's falling very sharply, which I guess is evidence of the free cash that the business throws off. We initially said that we wanted our net debt to be around 1 times the EBITDA by the summer of 2023. I think we could be as much as 1 year in advance of that. It could be by summer 22, which
Right.
means that over the next few weeks, few weeks and months, I think we'll review how we want to use that capital going forward, to get the right mix between continuing to invest in the business, paying down debt, rewarding our shareholders, but also looking for growth in the business. So I don't have anything I can share with you right now, other than you are right. We expect to beat that target by up to a year.
Fantastic. Well, does the stronger than expected balance sheet affect the restrictions around the potential dividend payments in FY22E and 23E?
The answer to that one is very simple. No, not in the short term.
Right.
So the only way that changes if we were to reach a new agreement with our lenders. But in the short term, those restrictions stay in place.
Okay, good to know. Now, slightly changing things up here. Jon, what has given you the most pride this year?
Okay. That's a really simple one for me. It's actually our colleagues. We do lots of different things in our business. We invest in technology and everything else. But actually, the thing that makes my business a special business is its culture, and the people and the thing that make the culture special are the people, without question. And in a year when we've had all the highs and lows, and mainly lows, let's be honest, of the pandemic, we've got fabulous engagement scores. Our service levels are great, and our people have really stepped up, which is why we've delivered both on the financial and the non-financial. So yeah, it's always tempting if you're CEO to point to financial results or something,
Yeah.
but actually in our business, it's our people that give me the greatest pride. And that's, if you like, the source of our sustainability, because whatever we ask them to do, whatever we challenge them to do, they all step up.
Yeah, great answer. Finally, in the last Edison TV interview, you shared an unusual fact about the origin of Smith's News. So, to finish things off, do you have another fact or maybe a pearl of wisdom that you could share with us?
I don't have a pearl of wisdom. I do have another fact, and you can judge for yourself whether it's interesting or not. So if you listen to some people, they would tell you that newspapers and magazines are dead or are dying. However, we distribute 22 million newspapers each week and 6 million magazines each week. So despite the fact that some people would let you believe that the category is dying, it's far from it. It's still a huge category. People still love to read a newspaper and a magazine, albeit not in quite the same numbers that they did 10 years ago. I accept that completely. But we shouldn't allow ourselves to believe that the category is nearly dead. It's far from it.
And I completely agree with that.
Good. Long may that continue, Michelle.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, it's been brilliant to talk to you. Jon, thank you so much for joining us, but also sharing those insights about Smith's News with us here at Edison TV. And I hope we can do it again soon sometime.
Great, my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thanks.